Venezuela, in fact, had more shots on target. In the end, it is a point apiece. Just taking a look at what that means for CONMEBOL qualifying. I think Venezuela maybe would have taken the point most definitely. I think if we offered it at the start of the game, sitting on 12 points of Brazil, of course, as we mentioned, rallying in the last round of matches. They currently sit third in qualifying. Gustavo Hofman joins us, obviously a reporter for ESPN Brazil. Gustavo, how do you sum up this game? As a Brazilian, are you disappointed?
Hello guys, good night. Well, it was a very important point for Venezuela and a disappointing point for Brazil, for sure, especially because I think that Brazil started playing very well. The first half of Brazil was a good first half, especially with the ball, attacking Venezuela. I think that the Brazilian forwards, Vinicius, Raphinha and Savinho, they were connecting between themselves very well. I think that they had some good connections, especially in the first half, when Brazil scored and could have scored one more goal. But from the first minute till the end, till the last minute, I think that without the ball, defending Brazil was not so well. I think that Brazil had some problems to defend Venezuela. We saw the stats. Venezuela had almost 2 expected goals. They created chance against the Brazilian defense. Brazil tried to defend in a 4-4-2 formation, and I saw too much space between these lines. I didn't see the lines. I didn't see organized lines, especially the second line. On the left side, for example, we didn't know if Vinicius Junior had to close the second line on the left or Igor Jesus. I think that defending Brazil had many problems against Venezuela. With the ball attacking, as I said, I think that especially in the first half, we saw some good connections between them. After the first half, I think that when Venezuela scores, and the goal is a good example of how easy it was to go inside the area of Brazil. But then Brazil gets the game again, starts to attack, and the Brazilian forwards are so skillful. So I think that when Brazil attacked, Brazil created chance. Brazil had a good game attacking. Could have scored at least one more goal. Lost a penalty, lost some chances also. But defending, for me, was the biggest problem for Brazil.
Vinicius Junior was a big talking point, Stevie, that we brought up on yesterday's show. He doesn't hide, does he?
No.
It's not like he tries to shirk responsibility. He knows he's the man, he's the leader there, and he does a lot of good things, but obviously today, a missed penalty will grab the headlines.
Yeah, and we saw in the highlights a lot of the good things he did, you know, particularly using his pace. He also had some good dribbles, and he was involved in anything good that Brazil did going forward, he was involved in. But again, his temperament, it just takes away from his game, you know, because I'm thinking on one hand about all the good things he did, but really in the forefront of my mind, it's about just how he loses control. And the worst thing about him losing control is not only does it affect him, but it urges the opposition on. It gives them something to get involved in. Yeah. It gives the crowd something to get the team going. So for all the good things he does do, I think he wastes a lot of it by his temperament and brings the opposition into the game.
It's unnecessary, isn't it?
Yeah, it is unnecessary, but it's something we've seen many times, particularly at Real Madrid. And it does take away from his game when he gets into this sort of mindset where, let's be honest, he lacks a little bit of class in terms of how he handles himself and behaves himself. You could argue he's the most dangerous frontman stroke wide player on the planet at the moment, when he's in the right mood, when he gets on the ball. But all this other stuff, anybody can miss a penalty, but all this other stuff, he did get a hand in the face, but it wasn't enough to send him to the floor, right? And again, he's arguing with the benches and the officials. You know, it's so frustrating at times. And I understand, you know, Brazil, Gustavo said they played relatively well in this game. Are Venezuela a good side? I mean, am I missing something here? Where's Ali? Ali, are Venezuela a good side? Because should this game between a country like Venezuela and a country like Brazil be as close as it was? It's
just where Brazil are, though.
It's where I just remember growing up, and I know this is yesteryear, but watching these Brazilian teams and just going from 1 to 11, just going, wow, look at this. And they just don't have enough of those players. They have some.
Yeah.
But not enough.
Gustavo, just going back to Vinicius Junior, we saw the good, the bad and the ugly kind of today, didn't we? And This is from the outsider looking in, and as Craig mentioned, we see a lot of him for Real Madrid, and we see him lose his temper. And the frustrating thing is, I'm sure if you're coaching him or playing with him, he gets involved in things he really doesn't have to.
Yeah, I'm sure that when the match gets a little bit tighter, the match goes on and he gets more frustrated with the result, with the other players. Of course, that it affects him. It affects him. It affects the team also. But I think that today we saw a good version of Vinicius. Not the best version and not the worst version. I think that was a good version. As Craig said, he lost a penalty, but it happens. No problem with that. He suffered the penalty. He got the penalty for Brazil. I still think that the main problem for Brazil is collectively. We're talking about Vinicius Junior, of course, because he's the best player of Brazil. He should be the leader of this team now without Neymar, without some very good and old players like Casemiro. He was a leader for Brazil. So Vinicius must understand his role now in Brazil. He's not just one more player. He should be the best player of Brazil, and so he should act like the best player of Brazil. And I really agree with Craig when he says that Brazil now is not the best team when you look to one from 1 to 11. And this is the problem, as I said. Collectively, Brazil is not a very strong team. The difference between Brazil and Venezuela is still high, for sure. But Venezuela also got a tie with Argentina in some weeks ago. So I think that Brazil now is maybe is getting better each game to the other. Let's see how it happens against Uruguay, because Brazil won the last 2 matches, now got a tie, a draw with Venezuela. And at this moment, we cannot put Brazil in a group of the 4 or 5 best teams in the world. Brazil now is a team of quarterfinal. Brazil now is a team of World Cup quarterfinal. To look at this team and say, okay, Brazil is getting better. Brazil is developing their offense with their players. Brazil is still needs to get much better from what we saw.
Gustavo, just a word on Raphinha. What a season he's having. Of course, scored last month for Brazil, those key goals in those wins, and scored again today. Been exceptional for Barcelona. Are you surprised how we've seen such a change in form from him compared to what he was last season?
Dorival Junior has to say thank you to Hansi Flick every day, because Hansi Flick changed this player. The way Raphinha is playing at Barcelona is amazing. And Dorival Junior got a number 10 because of this. Raphinha now is the number 10 of Brazil, not just at his shirt, but playing as the number 10 of Brazil because of what he's doing in Barcelona this season. So the way that Raphinha changed his play, the way that Raphinha treated, the way that the mind games that he had to treat also, because it was a very tough moment for Raphinha. Let's remember, before the season begins, Barcelona was trying to sell Raphinha and hire Nico Williams, and Raphinha had to deal with that. And he dealt with that in a brilliant way, and now he's playing very well for Barcelona and also for Brazil. I think that he had a very good match today and a brilliant goal in a free kick.